Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed since last time. Attempted same-sex marriage, now a felony in Indiana. The conservative freak out over the Supreme Court's recent rulings striking down the Defense of Marriage Act and Proposition 8 is about to take a particularly vicious turn in the state of Indiana, where a new law has just been passed, which goes into effect next year, that will make the act of a same-sex couple applying for a marriage license a felony, punishable by up to 18 months in prison and as much as a $10,000 fine. It will also make the act of performing a same-sex marriage a misdemeanor punishable by fines and jail time. Now, same-sex marriage is already illegal in Indiana, and it has been, but I guess with the recent rulings they were worrying about the ramifications and the fallout and what have you, so the Indiana legislature decided to upgrade same-sex marriage from merely illegal to extremely fucking illegal, which is, I believe, the legal term. Right-wing radio host swears to never recognize same-sex marriage. Speaking of conservatives losing it over gay marriage, radio host and fundamentalist Christian halfwit Matt Barber took to the airwaves last week and said this:
"We will not pretend that a man can marry a man or a woman can marry a woman under any circumstances in any context whatsoever."
Well, don't worry, Matt. You don't have to pretend, buddy. See, men can marry men. Women can marry women. It's a reality, man. Not everywhere, unfortunately, but in lots of places, and they can do it whether you recognize their right to do it or not. See, we don't really care whether you personally approve of same-sex marriage or not, because it's not up to you to decide which citizens deserve equal rights in our society. That's kind of the point. Dennis Prager compares pro-gay marriage rulings to toppling of Egyptian president. Do you know Dennis Prager? Well, if you don't, just think Bill Bennett, only less of a sweaty drunk. And of course, like his fellow conservatives, Dennis here is freaking out about gay marriage. He recently wrote a column where he compared the Supreme Court decisions in favor of marriage equality to the military coup that recently deposed the democratically elected president of Egypt. Like those Egyptians who voted for Mohamed Morsi, Prager says, those Californians that voted to pass Proposition 8 have been told that their votes don't count. A few key differences, though, that Dennis failed to notice that I just happened to pick up on. The voters of California had their decision overturned not by the military, but by a federal court. Slight difference. And also, and I feel like I keep saying this whenever people bitch about gay marriage, nobody is being oppressed by the legalization of same-sex marriage. Nobody. Unless you consider people being told that they're not allowed to vote to exclude a particular group of people from a social institution for no legitimate reason to be a form of oppression. Which I don't. Dennis Prager does, but fuck him. GOP congressman doesn't know what sex education is for. Republican congressman from Texas and embodiment of clueless, self-satisfied ignorance Louie Gohmert was recently a guest on David Barton and Rick Green's radio show. When the subject turned to sex education, Gohmert, an expert on neither, had this to say.
Let the kids be innocent. You don't have to force this sexuality stuff into their lives at such a point. They'll find out soon enough, and in fact, mankind has existed for a pretty long time without anyone ever having to give a sex ed lesson to anybody. And now we feel like, oh gosh, people are too stupid unless we force them to sit and listen to instructions.
Does Louie Gohmert think that sex education classes are meant to teach children and teenagers how to have sex? Does he say that sort of thing a lot around people? I mean, you'd think after all these years, someone would have been kind enough to pull him aside and correct this embarrassing misconception of his. Explain to him that the purpose of sex education courses is to teach students how to handle their sexuality in a way that is mature and responsible. And given that Gohmert hails from a state that the U.S. Census recently found has the highest rate of repeat teen pregnancy in the nation, it seems like it's help from which quite a few people could benefit. He thought sex education meant fucking lessons. Walmart throws temper tantrum over DC minimum wage hike. A few years ago, Walmart wanted to get into Washington, D.C. so badly that it promised to donate tens of millions of dollars to charity in exchange for the right to build stores within the district. Now, having been granted that right, Walmart has recently threatened to halt construction on 3 locations and cancel plans for all future stores over a bill that the city council was considering that would have required large stores like Walmart to pay employees a minimum wage of $12.50 an hour. This sort of fist shaking and foot stomping is typical of Walmart when faced with the prospect of having to pay its employees enough to survive without relying on public assistance, and it has worked in the past, notably a few years back in Chicago, when the mayor of that city vetoed a similar law when Walmart threatened to leave. The good news is, after Walmart issued its kill the bill or we're out of here ultimatum, the DC City Council passed the bill anyway. The bad news is the mayor of D.C. has not yet signed the bill into law and still may veto it. So here's hoping that Mayor Gray will do what is right, not for Walmart, but for the people of D.C., many of whom might hope to someday work for Walmart. And you know what? I'm sure he will. Politicians usually do right by the people, don't they? The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.